Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Math 1 EOC review. Today we're going to be doing questions 16 to 30. 16. Scientists collect the following data to explore the relationship between two variables, x and y. The scientists performed a linear regression and also plotted the residuals. Based on the residual plot, the scientists decided to exclude one data point. The scientists then performed linear regression on the set of remaining data points. The result was that the new linear model fit the remaining data more closely than the original model fit the original data. Which data point did the scientists exclude? So for this question, we're being asked on our knowledge of data sets, data points, and our knowledge of linear regression. If we go over here to our Desmos on the EOC math version, here I have the data set and our linear regression. Remember that if you want to do linear regression, you have to insert the formula y1 tilde mx1 plus b for this to work. So all the question is asking us is that if we were to remove one of these little green dots, which is our data points, which one could we remove so that the remaining data points could better align with this red line here, which is our linear regression. So for this one, it's really easy. All you have to do is look at the data points and you have to find the outlier. For this one, obviously, it's going to be this one, if it'll let me, but no, okay. But if you were to look on the graph here, you would see that this little outlier here is actually 8.2, 24.3. And if we go back to our EOC paper, we are met with 4 answer options, but obviously A to C are wrong. They're not correct in any manner. So all we're left with is our outlier, which is D. So that's our correct answer. 17. A set of 9 data points is shown below. Which statement is true if a 10th data point of 45 is added to the data set? All right, moving on. We're being tested on our knowledge of mean and median. For those who don't know, mean is basically the sum average. All you have to do is add all the data points, as you can see here in Desmos, all the data points, divided by the quantity of data points in that data set. So I answered this right here, and it tells us there's 9 data points. So that's what I did over here. And that will give us our mean. All right, but it's asking us what statement is true if a 10th data point of 45 is added. So all you have to do is copy this. All right, we add 45 to the end, change this 9 to a 10 because there's now 10 data points. And our new mean is 11.9. So that means our mean increased from our old mean. So looking back to our answer choices, let's see what we can eliminate. A, the mean and median will both increase. True. Not sure if the median will do that, but for now, the mean will increase. The mean will increase. True. The mean will increase. True. D, the mean and median will both decrease. No, the mean will not decrease. It will increase. So we can cross out D. All right. So now all we're left with is that we have to figure out what the median will do. Will it decrease, increase, or stay the same? Okay, so for this one, it's actually pretty easy. A median is basically, over here I have the little picture. It's basically all the numbers laid out, least to greatest, and the median will be the middle number of the data points. So for the original data set over here, I'll cross out the 45 here. Our middle number is 9. There's 4 numbers on that side and 4 over here. All right, so that's our median for now. 9 is our median. But what is our new median when we add this 45 over here? So when we add that, there's no longer 4 numbers on the side, but there's actually 5. In this case, when there seems to be an even data set, like 10, 12, 14, 16, so on, there's a high possibility there might be actually 2 or more medians. In that case, well, in this case, actually, we have 2 medians. All you have to do is just find the mean of it, and that will be our new median. So we add our 2 9s here, right? That equals 18. 18 divided by 2 equals 9. So 9 is our new median, right? So what is our correct answer? C. We can cross out A and B because our median stayed the same in both situations. 9 new, 9 old. All right, so moving on. Question 18. What is the distance in units between the y-intercept of f of x equals x squared plus 7x minus 18 and the y-intercept of the linear function that passes through the points shown in the graph below, in the table below? All right, so for this one, let's go over to our Desmos. And here I have inserted both the table and the equation. So off the bat, when you do that, you met with this line, this quadratic line, well, curve, and these little data points. So the interesting thing about this is that for you to find the y-intercept of this table, you actually have to do a linear regression, okay? So again, just do y1 tilde mx1 plus b, and you'll be good, all right? So let's zoom in a little bit deeper here. Our y-intercept for our equation x squared is negative 18, all right? Negative 18. And if we go up here, our y-intercept for our table is 5. All right, so hold on. It's not negative 18 plus 5. It's not negative 13 units in distance. Okay, you cannot have a negative distance. So instead, think of it this way. All right, you're 18 units from negative 18 to 0. Okay, so that's 18 units. All right, add. And you're 5 units away from 0 up here, okay? So you're going to add this 5 here, and you get 23. So the answer is 23 units. So don't go automatically doing this or this, because you will get the wrong answer, okay? You cannot have a negative distance in this situation. All right, moving on. Question 19. What is the value of x in the equation shown below? So let me zoom in here so you can get a better angle at this. Now, if we were to go over to Desmos up here, you will see that it actually won't let me do that equation. Where here it says plotting implicit equations in inequalities is disabled. So for these types of questions on the EOC, you will have to know have the steps to do them. Otherwise, you're kind of cooked. So yeah, so let's do this over here. So first things first, you might be tempted to fix this side over here rather than this side, but remember PEMDAS, you always have to do parentheses first, and for this one you have to spread our 2 to these x and 8 in the parentheses, so let's do that. 2x plus 16, 2 times 8, all right, and then we're left with our negative 4x, and let's write the rest of the equation. All right, that's our equation for now. All right, so our next move can obviously be combining like terms. So we have 2x here and negative 4x, right? So combining that gives us negative 2x. Write out the rest of the equation the same. Okay, now what we can do is we can actually just move everything on one side. So let's move this negative 10x to the side. All right, what you're left with is negative 12x plus 16 equals 4. All right, we're getting to the end, but don't worry. All right, for this, all we have to do is subtract the 16 on this side. So let's do that on both sides. And what you're left with, all right, write this over here. You're left with negative 12x equals negative 12. All right, so let's just divide everything by negative 12 over here and on this side as well. So our answer is x equals 1. Negative 12 divided by negative 12 is 1, and our x is just left by itself. So that's our answer for now. X equals 1 is 2x plus 2y equals 16. All we're going to do is just subtract this 2x on both sides. Okay? So what we're left with is 2y equals negative 2x plus 16. Alright, isolate y, so we're dividing by 2. Divide everything by 2. Alright, so what we're left with is y equals x plus 8. Alright, so if we go to decimals, you can see that we can actually plug that into decimals. Yeah, so that's good, right? But obviously we have to fix this one right here so we can actually see it and determine if it's one solution, no solution, or parallel, or which is basically infinitely many solutions. So let's do that. Do the same thing as we did to the top one, negative 4x on both sides, right? So we have 3y equals negative 4x plus 27, right? Divide by 3. Leaves us with y equals negative 4x divided by 3 plus 9, right? If you go on to decimals, actually, you will see that this gives us one solution. So that's great. And let's move on, right? So let's do this one. You can see I actually have the answers over here, but that is because I wanted to memorize this. So let's actually find y. These are the answers, right? So let's just do everything we did on the first two, right? So 2y equals negative 2x plus 8, right? Isolate. You always want to isolate. This is one of the most important steps, actually. So what you're left with is negative x plus 4, right? Okay, so let's do this on the bottom as well. 4y equals negative 4x plus 16. Divide everything. Okay. You're left with y equals negative x plus 4. So you see, we both got the same equation. But what does that mean? Basically, this means there's infinitely many solutions because they're going to be overlapping. If you go on decimals and actually do this for yourself, you'll see if you insert one line and you insert the other, they overlap, right? So that means infinitely many solutions. They're always going to intersect with each other, okay? So let's move on. All right. Okay, so this is our last set of inequalities that we need to solve. We have 2x plus 3y equals 12 and 2x plus 3y equals 18. All right. Same, we have the answers over here. I'm just going to erase this for a minute, and I'm going to show you how I got that. All right, let's do everything we did. Minus 2x on the side. So we're left with 3y equals negative 2x plus 12. Right, divide everything by 3. We want that y to be isolated. Okay. Okay, y equals negative 2x over 3 plus 4. Remember, if we have like a fraction on the slope, that's perfectly okay. You don't need to find the actual decimal point or a whole number. You can just leave it as is, okay? So let's do the same on the bottom. Minus 2x, minus 2x. Right, let me change my color. And let's do this. So it's kind of the same in terms of slope. So we have 18 on this side. Let's isolate y again. All right, we have y equals negative 2x over 3, same slope. And we have 6 over here. All right, so let's just highlight these two. These are our answers. Here's our equations. If you don't want to use decimals, if you actually want to analyze this, these are actually the same slope. All right. Oops. Okay, my bad. I thought I didn't have this, the minus sign over here, but it does. Basically, all this means is that we have the same line. You just have different y-intercepts, okay? If you put this into decimals, it'll show you that they're parallel to each other, okay? They're not perpendicular, right? They're just parallel to each other. So they're kind of going in like the same direction, basically. What that means is that they'll never touch, they'll never intersect, so there is no solution to that one. They're never gonna intersect, they're never gonna meet, so there's no intersection to be found, basically. So this equation just equals out to be no solution. All right. Question 21. Which equation represents a line that is perpendicular to the graph of 4x plus 3y equals 9 and passes through negative 2, 3? Okay, so we can't actually put any of these equations into the graph because, again, no one puts equations, and we don't really have time to be putting all of these equations into y equals. More importantly, because, spoiler, they won't actually equal out to the numbers they say so, okay? So what we can do with this information is that we can analyze negative 2 as a coordinate point is x, right? So equals out to these. All right, so can't we just input these x and y values into these equations and see if they come out to these ones, to their answers, and see if they're true? And if they're true, doesn't that mean that's the correct answer choice? Yes, it does. All right, so if you didn't get what I was trying to say, all we have to do is try an equation out, input negative 2 and 3, and see if they actually equal out to what they say they equal out to be, and it should be our answer choice. All right, so let's start with D. 3, right? Put negative 2 here, plus 4. Y is 3. All right, we see that it does come out to 6, right? All right, splendid. But let's actually test this out with the rest of them. So C doesn't equal out what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to equal out to negative 6, but it's actually negative 18. So that's not C, right? So we're just making sure that all our equations are actually what they say they are, right? B isn't the answer either, because it says it's supposed to equal out to 18, but it actually equals out to 6. All right, let's do A. Minus 4. Question 21. Which equation represents a line that is perpendicular to the graph of 4x plus 3y equals 9 and passes through negative 2, 3? All right, so on the left, you can see actually a wall on the right. I put these answer choices into Desmos, okay? And what you can see is that I, instead of just putting x and y, actually put the coordinate points, right? So negative 2 equals x, so I just replaced x with negative 2 in these equations, and just tested to see if they actually equaled out to the answer that they say they do. So, for example, A, if you were to put 3x minus 4y equals negative 18, whatever x and y, it should equal out to negative 18, right? And that's what I did over here. But I found that B and C, right, they don't equal out to what they're supposed to, so we can eliminate those, okay? So let me do this again. Let me put just A and B up here, right? So A is true, it does equal to negative 18. Let's do D again. Right, and it does equal out to 6. So how can we choose the answer choice when they're both true, right? Because they do pass through negative 2 and 3, right? But in the equation, well, in the question, it says represents a line that is perpendicular to the graph of 4x plus 3y equals 9, okay? All we have to do is turn this into a y equals, right? Take away 4x, we're left with 3y equals negative 4x plus 9. Divide everything by 3. You're left with y equals negative 4 over 3x plus 3, right? So let's put this here. Y equals negative 4 over 3x plus 3, right? So we can actually turn these two answer choices into a y equals as well to see if they are perpendicular, right? So let's do that over here. Let me just write it over here since I have it over at Desmos. Okay, so let's do D, okay? So let's subtract negative 3x, right? So that leaves us with 4y equals negative 3x plus 6. Divide everything by y, by 4, right? So we're left with y equals negative 3x over 4 plus 6 over 4, right? So let's do this over here. Negative 3 over x plus 6 over 4. Now, does this look perpendicular to you? It doesn't, right? It intersects once, but I wouldn't really say that it is perpendicular, right? So let's try A out, okay? Let me erase all this. And we should see if A actually is perpendicular to 4x plus 3y plus 9. And if it is, that's our right answer. And if not, we're screwed. But let's just do that over here. So minus 3x, right? We're left with negative 4y equals negative 3x minus 18, right? Divide everything by negative 4. Right, that gives us, I would say, 3, 4. Okay, we write 4x plus 18 over 4. Okay, so let's take D out. Let's put this one in. All right, do you see that? This graph is actually perpendicular to the other one, right? Where the other one was just kind of like that, going to like kind of a double helix form. That's not what we want. We want this kind of like a cross or a T shape type of intersection with the other one. And so we are right. A is our answer choice 1 because it did equal out to what it said it would, right? If we inputted this coordinate point into the equation, right? And it was also perpendicular to 4x plus 3y equals 9. So that's how we know it's A and not D, okay? All right, moving on. The club began with 3 members. Each month, each member brought 1 new member. Which function can be used to determine the number of members X months after the club began? All right, so let me reload this here. And let's just put all of these into Desmos, right? These are not implicit equations, so we can actually put these over here, right? So let's do this. All right, now what I'm going to do is just put the x's on here in parentheses, so it's just a bit easier to keep track, right? And let's focus on A, right? So for simplicity, let's say month 1, right? We have 6 members. Well, whatever equation we use, x, right, has to be 1, right? 1 month. 1 is x, right? So let's put this over here. Let me actually adjust that, right? So we have to have 6 members by the end of the month, and if we use A as our base equation, we only get 5 members. So that's not our correct answer, that's wrong. So let's delete this one, right? Let's do 3x plus 1, right? Let's put 1 here, but we actually get 4 members. So that's not what we want, so let's delete this one too. Let's move on to C, right? So let's put this one over here. We get only 3 members, so we don't double in size. We actually stay the same, but that's not true. Each month we gain 1 new member from the pre-existing members. So that's not really true if we say same. So let's try D, right? Okay. So let's do this. 1 month. We actually get 6 members, okay? So that's what we want. D is our answer. 23. Every 10 years, the census counts how many people are living in every town in the United States. The 2010 census showed that 1,000 people were living in Appleville and 4,000 people were living in Bridgetown. The population of Appleville is predicted to double every 10 years. The population of Bridgetown is predicted to increase by 1,000 every 10 years. If the predictions come true, what will be the first census year that will show Appleville with the larger population than Bridgetown? Alright, so some things to remember is that for these types of equations or problems, you kind of have to. Question 23. Every 10 years, the census counts how many people are living in every town in the United States. The 2010 census showed that 1,000 people were living in Appleville and 4,000 people were living in Bridgetown. The population of Appleville is predicted to double every 10 years. The population of Bridgetown is predicted to increase by 1,000 every 10 years. If the predictions come true, what will be the first census year that will show Appleville with a larger population than Bridgetown? Alright, so for this problem, you have to understand that every 10 years, you're not literally gonna put 10 as your x in whatever formula you use. It's actually gonna be more so 10 years equals one occurrence, okay? So that's what we're looking for. So if we come here, these are the equations we will use, okay? So let's explain why. Appleville, double a population, right? So 1,000 times 2, right? Every 10 years, so that's what we have is exponential over here. And Bridgetown has 4,000 people, base population, plus 1,000 extra members every 10 years, right? It increases by 1,000 every 10 years. So that's why we're not multiplying for Bridgetown and what we are for Appleville, okay? So be aware of that. Always use the correct formula. There's actually a formula sheet if you ever look up sequences or exponentials. Just search up these types of problems or practice with them. They are kind of tricky because you're not literally going to use 2010 as, let's say, your years. You're more so going to use 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 more accurately. So let's show that over here on Desmos. So 1,000 times 2 to the t, which in this case is just going to be x for us, right? Just x. Right. So let's actually look at these graphs. And if we do, let's just go up and up and up. So when do they intersect? Question 23. Every 10 years, the census counts how many people are living in every town in the United States. The 2010 census showed that 1,000 people were living in Appleville and 4,000 people were living in Bridgetown. The population of Asheville is predicted to double every 10 years. The population of Bridgetown is predicted to increase by 1,000 every 10 years. Alright. Basically, what would be the first census year that will show Appleville with the larger population than Bridgetown? Alright, so here are the equations we will be using, right? 1,000 times 2 to the 10th power, not 10th, but to the t power. In Bridgetown is 4,000 plus 1,000 times t, right? So all it's doing is that we're just visualizing the information that we're given. And if we go over to Desmos, we can actually see we don't really want to use x, as a placeholder, right? We much more want to use numbers, okay? So we have to understand that every 10 years isn't actually going to be, we're not going to be inserting 10, all right? That's incorrect. We're not going to have 1 million people in Appleville, right? So better yet, we will be using 1, okay? 10 years is 1 occurrence, and that's what we want to use in these mathematical situations, right? So 2 occurrences equals 20 years, and that's just basically visualizing the census and how it works in a mathematical sense, right? All right, so in one occurrence, which is 2020, right? 10 years after the 2010 census, we have 2,000 people living in Appleville, but 5,000 people living in Bridgetown. But we want more people in Appleville than Bridgetown, so let's keep going. Two occurrences, 20 years after the 2010 census, so we're now in 2030, okay? Again, 4,000 people in Appleville. Not enough to surpass the 6,000 people in Bridgetown, right? So let's go one more, right? Now we're getting somewhere. We have 8,000 people in Appleville and only 7,000 in Bridgetown. So 3 occurrences equals 30 years, right? 30 plus 2010 equals 2040. So 2040 is the official census year that we're going to have, the first time that we're going to have more people in Appleville than in Bridgetown, okay? All right. 24. 2 stores have movies to rent. The first store charges a $12.50 per month membership plus fee plus $150 per movie rented. The second store has no membership fee but charges $3.50 per movie rented. So, what's the minimum number of movies a person would need to rent in a month for the first store to be a better deal, right? So let's put these equations up on here in Desmos, right? So we can see initially the blue, right? The blue is not so good, right? I mean, $24. 2 stores have movies to rent. The first store charges $12.50 per month membership fee plus $150 per movie rented. The second store has no membership fee but charges $3.50 per movie rented. What is the minimum number of movies a person would need to rent in a month for the first store to be a better deal? Alright, we're here on Desmos, we have it visualized, right? So let's see. Initially, the blue, right, is much more expensive than it is to for the second store, right? Second store is a lot cheaper, as you can see here, right? Blue is more expensive, but as we cross over, right, the blue suddenly becomes submissive to the more dominant green, right? So that means, all it means is that the green is getting a little bit more expensive as you rent more movies, right? And the blue is getting a bit cheaper, right? $150 per movie instead of the $350, right? So after how many movies would the blue need for it to be cheaper than the green? Well, 7. I would say 7. Because technically, we can't really have 6.25 movies. So that's why we say 7 for this one. So let's just put 7 movies up here. And that's basically all we have to do. Just make sure you don't get confused by any decimal points. If it's like after a decimal point, for example, you have 6.49, just round up to 7. You can't really have a decimal. You can't have 6.25 movies, but you can have 7 movies, right? And if we were to say 6, right? If you really think about it, if we have 6 over here, the blue option is still a lot more expensive than the green option, but we want the blue to be cheaper, right? So that's why it's only after 7 movies that it will be cheaper, right? Alright. So moving on. 25. Karen has 2 dogs. The larger dog weighs 1.4 pounds more than the smaller dog. The combined weight of the 2 dogs is 12.6 pounds. What is the weight in pounds of the smaller dog? Okay, so 2 dogs, we can just set this up, right? So X equals the smaller dog, okay? But the large dog only weighs about 1.4 pounds greater than the smaller dog, right? So we have small dog plus big dog, which is represented in parentheses, equals 12.6 pounds, okay? 12.6 is the combined weight, so let's see, 12.6, okay. So for this type of situation, all you have to do is combined like terms. You can combine these two x's because they're not being multiplied, right? So it's 2x, not x squared, plus 1.4 equals 12.6, right? All you have to do is subtract that 1.4 from this side and from that side as well. So let's do 12.6 minus 1.4. And we get 11.2, right? So 2x equals 11.2, right? Well, we have to divide that by everything by 12. I mean, not 12, 2. So 11.2 divided by 2 is 5.6, right? So, in weight, in pounds, 5.6 pounds is the weight of this smaller dog. 5.6. And that's all we have to do, right? So moving on. 26. Which choice could be modeled by a linear function? Right, so we have A, the amount of money, Y, in an account after X years, earning 4% interest compounded annually. So that's wrong, right? That's completely wrong. We want a linear function, okay? 4% interest is not linear at any, in any situation, okay? Let me graph this real quick. So, maybe we have like $2 plus 0.67, 3 years. That's not a linear regression, okay? That's not a linear function, that's not linear anything, okay? Alright, let's go on to B. The monthly cost Y to use the cell phone for X minutes at a rate of 4 cents per minute. So, I would assume X plus 4. Whatever. You can have that. Right? That is a linear function. Doesn't matter. Right? Because all it ends up being is 5x. Regardless, whatever it's saying, it is represented by linear ideology. It has the qualities of a linear function. So B can be plausible, but let's check out the other options. C, the height y of a ball after bouncing x times if each bounce reaches 2/3 of the previous height. So no, we can't really, it's kind of a geometric sequence if you really think about it, because 1 times 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3, it goes on and on and on, okay? But that's not really a linear function either, so let's cross that out, okay? D, the amount Y of radioactive material remaining after X years when decay occurs at a rate of 30% each year. Again, we don't want a percentage in our linear functions, okay? Anything with a percentage in the problem should be a sign that it's not linear anything, okay? So D is out of the question, right? And 26B is the only one that could actually be modeled by a linear function. So there you go. 27. Oscar planted a tomato seed in his garden. Each day he recorded the height of the tomato plant, right? So the y-axis and x-axis, inches and days, and it's counting by 2. During which interval did the tomato plant grow the fastest? So what we want to look out for in these types of situations is that we want the greatest slope, okay? Greatest slope means steepest, okay? So in this graph, we have 2 really steep points, okay? We have one right here, which is 6 to 8, right? We have another one right here, 10 to 12, right? That's also pretty steep. Now, we can't really do 10 to 12 or 12 to 14 because they're not as steep as these other 2 answer options, right? And if we just eyeball it, we can actually see that 8 to 10 is the answer choice. But if you do need a more convincing argument, you can actually put this into Desmos. I will not, just because I think these types of graphs can be eyeballed, right? Obviously, this is steeper, so just keep in mind you can either find the slope, right? Do y, x, mx plus b, whatever you want. But just be wary that you also can eyeball in some situations. These are not difficult by any means, so just keep note of that. Alright, question 28. The function a(n) equals 3n minus 7 represents the value of the nth term in a sequence. What is the sum of the first and fifth terms of the sequence? So if we just put this into Desmos, all we have to do, right, is put 1 as our first term, replace the n by the first and fifth, right? So in this first one, we have -4, okay? -4 plus, because we're doing sum, right? So let's retype this and put 5, right? Replace 5 with n, okay? We get 8, right? -4 plus 8 equals 4. So the sum of the first and fifth terms of the sequence is 4. All right, moving on. Question 29. The width of a rectangle is 3/4 of its length. The perimeter of the rectangle is 420 feet. What is the length in feet of the rectangle? All right, over here I have a primitive version of a square, I guess, with length over here and the width over here. And I'll also have the formulas, all right? Perimeter equals 2 times length plus width. And I also just replaced everything with with the information that we're given. And we actually can start solving, right? 420 is our perimeter, L is L plus our width, which is actually 3/4 of its length. So we just replace it like that. But let's actually get to solving. So we go over here, right? Oops. That's too close. Let's do that, right? That's 2L, right? Plus 2 times 3/4. And if we go over to Desmos, if we actually put that over here, we get 1.5. Better yet, it's 3/2. And just put our L over here. All right. So we can rewrite 2L as 2/1L, right? And then we actually can just find the common denominator, but for this situation, I'll just be multiplying by 2, so we can get the same denominator as 3/2. So that gives us 4/2L plus 3/2. And now we can add them up together, okay? So what we end up with is 7/2L equals 420, okay? But we want L to be isolated by itself, right? Because we have to find L. All we have to do, right, is just multiply by 27 on both sides. 27. And on Desmos, if we do that, 420 times 27, it's 120. So that's our answer, 120 feet. There we go. And that's as easy as it will get. I just recommend that you remember all the perimeter and area formulas for every shape, because it might come up. All right. Question 30. This is a paper pencil copy of an online technology enhanced item. 2 functions are shown below. Click the point at which the graphs of the 2 functions intersect. And I don't know if it'll let you have a calculator for this section, but I assume so. Hasn't said anything about that. So let's just insert these 2 equations, right? 3x plus 14x minus 5, 11x plus 13. All right. So beware, don't just zoom in on one point, okay? Be sure to zoom out, because you'll actually kind of miss some stuff if you don't. All right, but let's find the sections at which they intersect. We see one intersection here at 3, -20, okay? And another one here at 235. So let's see if we actually have those up here. All right, we do. We have 3 and -20, right? And we also have 235. Let's just see if we have anything else, but I don't think so. Yeah, we don't. So these 2 are 2 answer choices, okay? So if you do have the calculator, please use it. It's a lot faster and sometimes more accurate if you do it by calculator rather than hand. I remember when I was in 8th grade doing this, sometimes I would actually, if I would be doing it by hand, I would actually start doing it wrong, because I accidentally put an X where it wasn't supposed to go, or a Y, and it would mess me up. But if I put it on the calculator, it would give me the correct answer. So if you do want to do it by hand, please just check back into the calculator to see if you got the right answer. Nothing wrong with actually using it. And this actually marks the end of our math EOC. review for today. I hope to have the other two parts by next week. So if you are interested in checking out the end, please stay tuned. We also have a bunch more stuff coming to this channel. We have the ACT math review, and we also have some experiments coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And for now, goodbye.